7 minutes after 8. You're still here on the AM show. Now, recently, I sat down and had a very open conversation with the local government minister, now outgoing local government minister, because he's been appointed as the new chief of staff. Amongst other things, we talked about the March 3 district assembly elections, and he revealed how processes are in place to get some sort of end of service benefit for assembly members. If you're an aspiring assembly member, if you're a good citizen, you want to make sure that you listen to this conversation, a really, really good one with the Honorable Julius Deborah. That's what we bring you next is AM Talk. So it's our one-on-one with the Honorable Julius Deborah, the Minister of Local Governments, and we're going to be talking on different issues concerning the upcoming District Assembly elections. We're touching on the Sanitation Day as well. A lot of interesting things that you want to stay on and listen to. So, Honorable Julius Deborah, I want to say thank you. Thanks for allowing us into your space to have this open conversation, I like to call it.
It's a privilege having you around here.
So let's talk about 3rd of March, the district assembly elections. Various suggestions have come up. Why is that particular elections not attractive to a lot of people?
Well, I think, let me start this way. With regards to the various suggestions that have come up, I've heard some even suggesting that why don't you have the election and make the election day a public holiday. Others have also suggested why don't you have it on the 6th of March, and different varied opinions. I think they are all entitled to their opinion. It's always good for us to have a base to hover discussions around. Ideally, I think to encourage maximum participation, probably that could have been the way to go. But as we speak now, this is what we have. It's a working day, but I believe sincerely that citizens must also be encouraged to go and exercise their civil responsibility, and then they can continue to their workplaces because of the importance of the district level election. You had raised a point asking as to why I think most people are not interested in the district level election. I think the reasons are several, but let me pick on one or two. One, I must admit that I think the publicity and educational aspect of the district level elections has not been so intensive and in advisedly acrimonious as sometimes the general elections go. Because the general election, each candidate that campaigns, or even the campaign teams and songs of the various political parties gingers some discussion. So it's held on and on and on and on. This is bipartisan, non-partisan, and so sometimes it gets a little bit dull. There's no excitement in the campaigning as compared to the general election. However, one thing that we need to stress and stress more importantly is that the district level election, as a matter of fact, should be the most important of all the elections under the decentralization system. Because under the decentralization system, the local government is supposed to be the basic and most important governing body closer to the people. Elsewhere, where they have different types of systems, even the local government is stronger, because stronger in the terms of they have their own county taxes that they ensure are done, basic county rules that people don't play with, and everybody looks up to the work of their assemblymen and women. So in the American system, for example, they look so close to the assemblymen represented by the council. And it matters. They can call them to town hall meetings for the council members to tell them what they are doing on their behalf and what they are going to do and things like that. Now, in our case, right from the inception of the district level election, I think, and I stand to be corrected, that most people who ought to have taken the interest, probably for several reasons that we all know. I mean, Ghana, if you are doing frontline politics, you get a bash and all. I think with the exception of what I remember is the Dr. Pakwesi Indom, who went, volunteered himself, and of course we all know his background and position, but he put all that aside because he wanted to render some service to the community, went down to contest. What I'm trying to say is that if people of certain, and without any malice to assemblymen across board, people with certain substance could also take an interest, could be retired educationists, retired bankers, could take an interest in the local governance system of where they live or where they hail from, then that could have enriched the caliber of people that will form the assemblies.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Can we look at the office of the assembly member? Because some people have also argued that it's not even attractive to attract all these caliber of people that you're suggesting. They are not paid. Do they even have a recognized office? Do people respect them? Are they able to make any impact in their various areas? So if the office itself is not attractive, then it cannot attract people who can really, really make a difference, even though some people are making a difference. I think the one in my area where I live, he is very responsive. Yeah.
Well, I have a different opinion as to we saying that the position of an assembly member is not attractive.
Why don't we pay them?
Good.
Why don't we give them salary?
Good. You see, receiving salary, I would say, under this context is relative. Because sometimes people don't get the satisfaction of what they are doing necessarily from the salary they are getting. They get from other benefits they get in society. For example, I believe there are people who serve as assembly members because they see themselves as volunteers representing their people. But that notwithstanding, I believe that as the system evolves, there were a lot of things that, for example, when they started, payment of allowances to them were not something that was really structured per se. As we speak now, we've just sent out an approval for a guideline to what we call payment of ex gratia. In other words, at the end of their service, they are going to receive something from the assembly for rendering that service. I'm not saying that is something that can commensurate.
Would you tell us how much, for instance?
Well, it's an expression of a percentage of the internally generated funds, but I don't have the figures readily. But it's something that has been looked at across board. So it's not going to be like a central government sending monies to pay for ex gratia of the assembly members, but it's going to be calculated based on what they've been able to raise as an IGF. And now I'm using that one as an example. Again, when they started, they never had facilities like maybe motorbikes to enhance with their operations. But the assembly that is about to end, during their tenure, they had motorbikes as part of it. I'm saying all this to say that it's a system that is evolving, and I have a strong feeling that as people make in their suggestions and opinion, coupled with the real situation at hand, could lead to an enhancement in other perks that could make the position of an assemblyman more attractive. But if we want to look at it necessarily from monetary point of view as the only incentive to go into it, it could become a problem. It will mean somebody could just go in because I'm going because I'll be paid, not necessarily because the person has got a willingness to serve them. When the work of assemblyman is quite involving in the rural communities, sometimes even if somebody is getting married, they have to knock on the door of the assemblyman. If there's a snake bite, if something happens, so all those defines how much is involved with their work. But I do agree with you in the long run that as we move on as a people and as discussion goes on, there could be the need for us to think about other incentives that could make their work attractive.
Why don't we also, because this is one of the suggestions, give it to the political parties? You did indicate that the campaign is usually dull. To make it more vibrant, if you do it NPP, NDC, CPP and the rest, there will be a lot more they'll be a lot more active, it will be vibrant, they can come up with their own theme songs and everybody will hear of them. Why don't you give it to the political parties?
Well, my candid opinion as a person, not as a minister responsible for the local government, is that if we also end up turning the assemblies into a politically motivated structures, chances are there could be, you see some of the deadlocks that will reach at national level. And you can imagine if there's a deadlock at, say, AMA, MPP assembly members standing on one side and CPP assembly members standing on one side, and they say, well, because for partisan reasons, if we sign or we approve or we vote for this particular thing, we think it will go in the interest of the mayor, who probably is an NDC or MPP guy, so let's not do it. If we have pockets of all this, I think will make governance at the local level a little difficult. But as a people, I mean, laws and rules are made for the benefit of the citizenry. So as we move along, if it becomes necessary for us to take a second look, I'm sure the society will move for it. As we speak now, you and I are aware of what came out of the Constitutional Review Committee. You know, they've made several propositions. We're still tossing them, but nothing will be as stronger than an idea which time has come. So hopefully, when we get to a stage where the whole nation becomes of the view for us to take a critical look at who becomes, or the way our local governance system is run, I'm sure we'll take a look at it. But in answering a very simple question, for now, I think it may not necessarily be too good a suggestion. That is my opinion. All
right. Let's move on to the National Sanitation Day, first Saturday of every month. Some persons have hailed this initiative, but they think that it's not been decentralized enough, so that if you're in Accra, as in if the Ministry of Local Governments is in Accra on that day, then it looks like all attention is in Accra, and residents in Greater Accra fully participate. If you're taking it to the Ashanti region, residents there will fully participate, but those in Greater Accra will sit down because the ministers are not here. It looks like the day is following you. It's not been decentralized.
Well, let me put it this way. You see, most of the time, which of late I've been saying that these are our colleagues in the media houses. I've known some people that even by 9 a.m. they're already on air presenting news to suggest that nobody took part in the event. So sometimes I ask myself, I mean, in my closet, I ask myself, what do we seek to achieve by saying things that would discourage citizenry from taking part? Are we saying that what is a public health issue must be left unattended to, or we're saying that, well, it's a good idea, let's find a way to get everybody involved? Now, I as a layman, I've been told that part of the responsibility of the media houses is also to educate the citizenry to get involved with ideas that are good, that works in the interest of the nation. And so if a media house is only interested not to encourage the citizenry to attend to their own sanitation needs as a way of helping themselves, but they are only interested to come out with a roll call and say, oh, we checked, nobody showed up. So if nobody showed up, then what is it? Who is the game against? I mean, is it to say that, okay, nobody showed up, so local government minister and his people must not be paid, or what? I am thinking that in answering a very simple question that you asked, the idea is that the National Sanitation Day is a call and an appeal to the citizenry, to their minds and hearts, that look, filth leads to epidemics, cholera, and a few other outbreaks of diseases that could affect all of us. But if we're able to get our environment clean, then we will avoid the extra money that is going to be spent in treating these outbreaks of diseases, etc., etc., etc. Now, we have this program. The call is to the whole nation, but then we also realize that because it is a campaign, it cannot be held in static. As a campaign, we have to make sure we're taking the campaign to all the corners of this country to continue with the educational process, which we believe we are doing. And so when we go to a particular region, it's symbolic to try and carry the message to them. And I've always said that it's not just about the number of people you see who descend into the gutters on the very day of the National Sanitation Day. It's the people who come to that self-realization that it's not good to live in filth. Let's do something about it. I cannot do it alone. Neither can my deputies do it alone. We probably need to work through some of our partners like multimedia who've agreed with us to help us educate the people to move away from a wrong habit to a good habit.
I don't know if you've seen our Clean Communities and My Community. These are initiatives, joint use initiatives, bigger picture multimedia initiatives to encourage citizens in different communities on their own to keep their surroundings clean, to talk about the issues and how they themselves can help. And these are projects that we've carried through for a very long time. I don't know if you've ever seen
well, I was
My
hoping
Community and Clean Communities.
I was hoping you were going to commend us for coming on board your cleaner community project, which we've been part of. Yeah, but
you know, of course, we're always grateful.
Yes, we were part of some of the things you did in the community, especially the one that took place at Kaokudi and all. Anyway, on a more serious note, I mean, those are the things that we are talking about. We are campaigning about something. Private entities such as yours are not saying that, look, multimedia, we are not an assembly, neither are we local government, but we think we can encourage citizens to do what is right. And the project worked very well. And I understand you're going to continue, which is a good thing. Can you imagine if all other media houses decide to take an aspect of this sanitation campaign, just as you've done? What would have been the multiple effects in Ghana by now? Would have been great, because you guys did extensive work where you had community journalists, or I've forgotten the name you gave them. These were guys from the various communities reporting on effort they were making to keep their environment clean. This is the thing we're talking about. But where we have a system where everybody sit back and say, oh, this is supposed to be the sole responsibility of Ministry of Local Government.
We pay taxes to the government. We expect them to do the work.
Right. I mean, I've heard that argument over and over and over. But question you ask is that, fine, the fact that we pay taxes may not necessarily insulate us should there be an outbreak of epidemic. You probably will be walking from the tax office after you've gone to pay your income tax. You decide to buy water, but because the person selling water probably has jabbled her fingers in some insanitary condition, right from paying your tax, you consume cholera-infected water. How are you going to say? Are you going to say, cholera come out of my body because I just paid my tax? You cannot. You know, so that's why we see this as a public health issue. We know our right. Everybody knows they are right. But sometimes you lose nothing if you make a little effort to help yourself. I've used this example over and over and over. I was privileged to live in a small community known as Tacoma Park in Maryland. Medical doctors, good people. But sometimes you wake up in the morning and you find at your doorpost that we want to do community cleanup maybe Saturday between 6 and 7. You don't even know who pasted it, but you'll be surprised. When you step out of your door that morning, you see everybody with rake trying to, you see normally when the trees are shedding, and everybody comes to where it's so beautifully done. I saw another community where they have a library. And I was told that all the people who work in the library are volunteers. You won't believe it, and it's very efficient, and everything works perfectly. So sometimes doing things for ourselves, we may not really appreciate it, but it helps, and it may also makes you proud for being part of a system you are helping to fix.
We know that the process is ongoing to make the day binding. So you know, we want to get a legal backing to this to the National Sanitation Day. How far with the process?
Yes, let me be very honest here. We took it to the Attorney General's department, and then they raised a few issues, including one where we were seeking to have requested that there should be restriction of vehicular movement on the day of the National Sanitation Day. And then they also quoted another law which will mean restriction on movement of persons. So we have to withdraw a little bit, still holding consultation with the Attorney General's Department and ourselves to see how best. Our interest is not necessarily about showing of power, that we have the law, everybody, you are forced to do it. If the people do not get it here, it still becomes difficult. That's why we've always adopted this educational approach to try and sell them. It's a very simple message, but it's difficult. And I sometimes say it without any malice to our colleagues from Nigeria. In Lagos, they did it. It worked because they were very forceful on the regulations. I'm told that when they are doing the exercise and you don't park your car and you drive, especially through a street where they are going, they will stop your car and load the garbage into the boot. This is a fact. You know, and it works. So if we pride ourselves so much, but now we are saying Lagos is doing well in terms of sanitation than Accra, you know, and then I get a little bit worried because they decided to solve it. Everybody got committed and they solved it. But in our part of the world, I've heard a lot of responsible people who come out to condemn this. But I'm not commenting about any because they are entitled to their opinion. Someone even said that we should do away with this word. It's not necessary. I mean, it's their opinion, so they can continue to express it.
One of the issues that has become really big on the day, the National Sanitation, is the picking up of the garbage right after the process. What are we doing really about it? Because it's become such a big issue.
Yes, it has been a big issue. It's been a source of worry to ourselves for the first 3 sanitation that we had. Initially, we were relying on the various municipal and metropolitan assemblies to ensure it is done. It didn't work effectively the way we wanted because people started talking about budgetary allocation, give us money to do it and all that. But as we speak now, we've made some progress. We've spoken to organizations such as the prison service and a few other organizations, and so we want to try what we have under our sleeve this time around. I want to be quiet about it and to see whether it will work. If it works, we'll improve on it. If it doesn't work, we'll turn our hands a little bit. But I must admit that that has been one of the disincentives to the exercise.
Why can't every assembly or every district have a landfill site?
Nothing stops them from having it. That is the first point. But as I've said some time back, I think our general attitude toward disposing of waste has been a little challenging for years past. Now going forward, we are encouraging most of the assemblies to try and do something on their own, plus where we have 2, 4, 3 assemblies together, we're thinking of a way to find an efficient way of disposing of the waste. So if you've heard, and if you've noticed from our budgetary allocation for 2015, you see that now we're making provisions as to how we can introduce a more efficient and modern technologies of disposing of the waste, which of course includes composting and a few other things. So yes, the challenge has been there, but going forward, we don't just want to be shouting on the rooftop that the problem is this, the problem is this. We want to make a move. I'll be very happy if by the end of 2015 we can have the Kumasi compost plant working, plus other efforts that we're making for the secondary Takoradi area. Even if the construction is started, I'll be very happy. It will mean that it's a step to move away from this almighty landfill site thing, which is becoming a thing of the past elsewhere. So yes, we are working at it, and we are mindful, and to show our seriousness, if you take a copy of our budget for 2015, you see that we've inserted in there, we need money to start or undertake projects towards the establishing of more compost plants as a way of disposing the waste.
When we come back, we're talking recycling plants here in Ghana. It is still our one-on-one open conversation with the Minister of Local Government, the Honorable Julius Deborah, with me right here in his office. I did say that we will talk about recycling plants, and it's very disappointing that we have just one which is being privately run. We generate a lot of garbage. Can we find a useful use for it?
Well, that's a very good question. As we speak now, I think privately we have, the last time I was briefed, we have no less than 3 or 4 of them. But they are recycling mainly the plastic for sachet water, and basically plastic waste is what they are recycling into pallets, and then they use the pallets to manufacture plastic bowls and things like that. Now, the policy as we speak is that we should encourage more private enterprises to go into recycling as a way of putting back to good use our plastic waste. Now, as a result of this, I think 3 years ago, a law was passed, which literally would mean that some funds is to be established to promote recycling of plastic as a way of absorbing some of the plastic waste that we have. Now, we are now, in fact, I would say we've even finished. We got a consultant to put the steps to operationalize that fund, meaning a fund will be established and the fund administrator will be appointed, so that there is an element of taxes which is going to be taken by Ghana Revenue, and then will be deducted into the fund for the development of recycling and plastic waste management. And so I am sure that once that fund becomes operationalized, there could be more entities that will want to go into the recycling. Now again, the reason why we want to go into composting is that all the compost plants, at least the one that we have in Ghana now, also undertake some form of recycling. What they do with the plastic aspect is that they export some of the rubber products to Canada, to Malaysia, and then they also use they sell some of the plastic to other entities, one in Tema and one at the Manjo, yes, where you should visit there and see how they go about.
Yeah, but this is somebody's private business.
Yes.
Is government not interested?
Government is interested, but you see, going forward, which is the general practice all over the world, government per se may not necessarily go into the actual establishment of a factory to undertake a particular exercise. Government's responsibility is to create a enabling environment to encourage more private entities to go into it. And what is government doing in this direction? What government is doing is to establish their fund, whereby monies accrue in the fund will be given back to private entities or private enterprises that want to go into recycling. So you are not necessarily going to see a factory established by Government of Ghana or Ministry of Local Government. the worst scenario will be a PPP arrangement, which we're doing with the compost plant, where government provides the land and in some cases some funding to enable us have it. So answering a very simple question, yes, recycling is something that we really want to pursue, and it is always intertwined with what we call separation of garbage, which is something we are piloting now, but I think we've piloted for a while. So we should be, I'm sure by June, you'll be seeing it on a much larger scale. Where we'll start with institutions where they have 3 or 4 litter boxes labeled separately. For example, plastic material, organic material, paper products, and things like that. We've spoken to some private waste contractors who've agreed in principle to operationalize the separation of the garbage, so that we pick plastic waste materials and send it to a plastic recycling point or a plastic entity that is interested in buying it. As we speak now, there's one started by an affiliate of Zoom Lion. We call them the buyback centers. And what they're doing is that they're establishing points all over Ghana, in every district, where people will just go and sell their plastic waste. They weigh them and they pay you off, and they break them down into pallets. And then from the pallets, they will send it to the factory. So if you go to Agogloshi right now, I think they've established 2 or 3 points, buyback points, where people collect. You see some women walk around the neighborhood, they collect the sachet water and the pet bottle water, and then they send them to these guys. They weigh and pay them, and then they crush them into pallets, and then they take it to the factories. But going forward, we are really going to boost this thing up to make sure that it becomes so visible for people to see, and people patronize, and then we think we'll move on.
So these businesses rely heavily on power. And I'm wondering how the situation that we find ourselves in terms of the power crisis, how it is affecting them, and how it would not make it so attractive for other persons to get into the business, because you're hoping that a lot of private people will get into the recycling business.
Well, I've always been very optimistic about life. I have always been, because in life you have an option to either be very pessimistic and keep looking on the negative, and sing with it, or be very optimistic with it. Now, what I believe is going to happen with time is that the general supply base of energy is going to go up. And so in about a year maximum, I'm told, things will improve, because they could have this gas. Just yesterday I heard that a private investor is also looking at pumping in 350. I mean, as somebody with a private sector background, I think we would have loved it if we have the quantities of energy we need to power our industries. No two ways about it. But in the midst of the difficulty we find ourselves, what do? Do we still make projections towards the future? If we had done that, and somebody had, grabbed the bull by the horn and did some calculation to say that, look, the population of Ghana will reach 25 million just around 2015. So let's make provision into the future for our energy needs. We wouldn't have been here. That is what is killing us. So I'm saying that even though the energy supply base is not up to the optimum we need now, anybody who wants to invest in recycling must start thinking about it now, because the future is bright. We consume so much and we dispose so much. Much of it could be recycled. In fact, we are even talking to some new groups that are thinking of what they call waste to energy. They want to convert what we perceive to be waste as a way of providing heat that could generate energy. We are exploring all the. Just I think 2 days ago I had a news item on your network that somebody said they were converting sea waves or something to sea waves, right? Something into energy. 10 years ago, I believe somebody would have said this is absurd. Even 5 years ago, if somebody says that we can have wind energy in Ghana, somebody will laugh at them. But when we went to Denmark recently, one of the things that came up, apparently a Danish group has done some work here, and has confirmed that Ghana have so much wind that could be used to produce wind energy. I'm not an energy expert, I will not pretend to be one. What the point I'm driving at is that even though there is difficulty now, but don't think necessarily about the difficulty now, be thinking about what will happen within the next 1 year. And I'm sure if a year from now somebody owns a compost plant or recycling plant, even with only plastics, the person will be smiling because that will be the order of the day.
Is sanitation taking all the ministry's time? You seem to be focusing a lot on sanitation.
Well, to the contrary, I would say no. I'm sure on your way up you saw the new vision that we've enshrined by the wall. We say we've selected, and when I took over in June, I made it public categorically that I'm looking at 4 thematic areas, or this ministry is going to pursue 4 thematic areas. We said environmental sanitation is 1, social housing is 2, development of SMEs is 3, and then the work of decentralization and local governance. Those are the 4 things that we picked. Now, for example, if you pick sanitation, within the past 3 months or so, we've made major progress. For example, we noticed that one of the problems we're having had to do with places of convenience, toilets. We've made so much progress in toilets. We've spoken to government to support. In addition to what the support government is providing, we've spoken to Fidelity Bank to support. So now they're going to make funding available to anybody who wants toilet could just qualify to go and get one. We've also succeeded in raising some funds to provide water, and we are looking at boreholes for second cycle institutions, for even individual homes that they need it, and rain harvesting systems. That is also under sanitation. I think we've gone far with it. I've not mentioned things that we are doing with compost arrangement, waste to energy and all that. Now, with regards to, say, social housing, as we speak now, this is being piloted in Tamale Metropolitan, and per arrangement, I think May, June, we are going to come out with a big launch as to the social housing development that we want to deploy in the various districts. So that is also ongoing. All these things are taking place in addition to our regular work that we do with the various assemblies to make sure that they're doing the right thing, and to also make sure that we move on as a ministry. So basically, well, it's not taking all our time, but because maybe a lot of people are now talking about sanitation, it becomes so topical an issue, and it's occupied the space it's ought to occupy. And I'm very happy that at least, if for nothing at all, we brought up an issue that has caught almost everybody's attention, and everybody is talking about it. So that is good. So in answering a very simple question, yes, all the 4 thematic areas are the targets we are working on. And I believe by the grace of God that by June 2015, people will see traces of all these things that we're talking about, and they will appreciate it the more.
Let's end our conversation with the different campaigns that you're hoping would attract people to go, and this is back to the assembly elections, to get out there and vote on the 3rd of March. You've got this cartoon, beautiful out there, but what's the whole concept about?
Well, thanks so much. I've always believed in this philosophy that says it's not what you are doing that really matters, but how you do it. What is the assembly election all about? It will be made to feel that the assembly election is for some people who have nothing to do, sort of. You know, it's for them, not for all of us. And so one of the ads that we had out had this concept about somebody that walks to a barbering shop and says, give me a haircut. And then he just, you know, the barber grabs the clippers and only for the guy to realize that he's giving him a wrong haircut. The import of the story is that if you don't really get involved with what happens around you, you always get wrong cuts. You don't know who's your assembly member. You don't have any interest in what they are using your money for. So if they decide, you decide that we should elect, quote unquote, some people, and they go to the assembly and decide, look, let's use the whole money that coming to us for allowances. And they will sit Monday to say opening prayer, sit Tuesday to read agenda of the day, sit Thursday to go through minutes, sit Friday to say closing prayer, and take allowances for all days. Your money, which should have been used for the gutter in front of your house, is being siphoned as an allowance. I don't mean assembly members are doing that, but in some cases it's happened. Let's have parties, let's give funeral donations, and they keep signing the check. And before you say Jack, the whole money is gone. Everybody is now blaming central government. But when you go through the records, then you see that so much has been remitted. But what happened? Assembly members took a decision. It was an assembly decision to buy kebab and have a party. I mean, it's a decision. You can't fault anybody. That's why we are encouraging the citizenry to take an interest, because it's about your money. I'll give you a typical example of a story I heard elsewhere. You know, people were saying that, they say that the common fund is not come. So even if they go request for school, the common fund and buy it. If they go request for, but as we speak now, which will surprise most people, it's true that the common fund has some backlog, but they've cleared up to the second quarter. The common fund said that they always have 1 quarter in arrears. So as we speak now, technically, it's only 1 quarter
of last year.
I'm telling you.
But this is a different year.
Good. So what I'm saying that several years ago, I'm not justifying it. Several years ago, you see they have backlog of maybe 3 quarters. It's changing. Gradually, it's catching up. But some people still will use that as the excuse. Common fund, you go and request for some small thing that needs to be done at the basic school in your community, common fund. But if you take an interest, you will know that by the grace of God, I'm sure by the next quarter, the last quarter will be cleared. I am very optimistic. Now, if that is done, because you don't take any interest, somebody somewhere will still be telling you that common fund and nothing is happening. But if you take an interest, then when they say that, you can even go to the assembly and say, I want to speak to the presiding. I say, look, I just learned that the last quarter of the fund, we got so much money. I want to know what is happening. People must take special interest. Now, the second art, I'm sure the cartoon which happens to be my favorite anyway, is about a young guy who is trying to date a lady, and then he invites the lady. And if you notice from the clip, they were saying pass left, pass right. That is to remind people about the street naming that we started. Okay. The essence of it. But eventually he gets to the lady, and the lady gets to the guy. The lady was like, where is your house? And the guy says, oh, that's my house. He said, oh no, I never knew that you live in such a anti-world. And the guy goes like, look at gutter, look at school, look at this. Oh, government, please come in. And then his colleague saying that, look, it's not necessarily about central government alone. You must also vote and partake in the district level election so that you know what is done to your money. So these are little innovation we try to introduce to excite and encourage, especially the people within the youthful bracket, to take an interest in the upcoming district level election. But because we know most of them are now on the social media, so we've gotten those things flying on. So if you've not seen a copy, I encourage you to look for a copy of those clips and watch on the social media. Okay. I want to say thank you for your time, really. Thank you. Thanks so much. Very deep, interesting conversation right there with the Honorable Julius Deborah, the outgoing local government minister, now the new chief of staff. We put that information on Facebook, and a lot of you have been commenting. So let me share a couple of what people have been saying with all of you. This is facebook.com/Joy News on TV. Jonathan Osei-Chum thinks that Julius Deborah was doing very well at local government. Why change him? Niana Kwejo Israel says, Mahama, a lot of different views. Osei Ajiman Boateng thinking, I thought they said Prosper Barney didn't resign. Yeah, well, now he's out. Kelvin Baka thinks this is good news for Julius Deborah and his family. Don't know why he's saying that. Suleiman was also asking for God guidance for him. And Olawe
Ololade Olufemi says, at least there will be development at the grassroots. James Intijabo says, the problem no be chief of staff or he be the chief Nankasa. He thinks the center cannot hold. And I'll end with this one from Sisu Idrisu saying, affable, hard-working Minister Honorable Julius Deborah, my role model. You become VIP one day and even the president of this republic. The sky is your limit. Keep it up. Okay, what can I say? Thank you very much for all the messages that you're sending to us on Facebook. We've got other things that could catch your attention that you can comment on as well. Facebook.com/Joy News on TV. With about 2 minutes to 9, this is where I want to say thank you for joining us really on the AM show, but I've got to say good morning. It's a special one coming right at you. Emefa Ewinam Atiabo, my colleague who is chilling right now at home. Okay, so from the whole crew, we want to say thank you, led by Patrick. We want to say thank you very much for joining us here on the AM show. God willing, I am back with Roland Walker tomorrow. Enjoy your Monday. It's a difficult one, but you know, you'll go through it. You'll see.